Hey everyone, welcome back to my little corner of the world. I am Dawn, and today I'm going to talk about some of my favorite historical fiction. Let me just start by saying I love to read historical fiction. I typically read historical fiction that is biographical, so sometimes it can be about someone real. I don't read historical fiction that is purely romance. If there's love in it, that's fine. And I don't really read historical fiction that's young adult, which is a little niche that I think is missing on BookTube. I think there's a lot of young adult historical fiction and romance historical fiction talked about. So this is what I like to read. This by no means is a complete list, and if you don't see some of like the most talked about historical fiction, they're probably my all-time faves anyways. I like to introduce people to maybe someone they've never heard of, or a time period they never thought of reading, or some new authors. So I still love your typical The Nightingale and I don't know, some of those like really spoken about historical fictions. These are, like I said, this is not a complete list. This is just what I have on my shelf, and ones that I still think about to this day. So without further ado, I'm going to get started. They're in no particular order. The first one is The Gilded Years by Karin Tanabe. She is also the author of The List and The Price of Inheritance. I have not read those books. This was the first book I've read of this author. She is writing about Anita Hemmings in 1897, who was the first African-American woman to attend Vassar, and no one knew. So she attends Vassar. She's really smart. She, has friends, but then when she goes home, she goes to her Black neighborhood. It is fascinating. I believe it's based on a true person, which I love. The writing was great. It really puts you in that spot. I just really, really loved it. She just came out not too long ago with a new book called 200 Summers, and I believe it's Asian, like historical fiction. So if not, you can check out these ones that have been out, and let me know if you've ever read Karin Tanabe and what you think of her. The next one is Z, a novel of Zelda Fitzgerald by Therese and Fowler. This is about Zelda Sayre. What's her? F. Scott Fitzgerald's wife. I don't know if you know about their relationship, but it was passionate and tortured and complicated, and he called her his muse, but then when he couldn't write, he blamed her for everything, and a lot of times she was writing for him. This was incredible because it was well researched. You really felt like you got to know Zelda because so much is written about her husband. You really get into the 20s. Hello, those are amazing. So you really get into the time period, and the writing is phenomenal. This was the only book I had read of this author. She did come out with contemporary fiction. I do have it on my shelf. I just haven't read it yet. But if you like 1920s, Great Gatsby, F. Scott Fitzgerald, you'll really like learning about his wife and their relationship. Even though it's fiction, she does a good job of telling their story. Another one is by David R. Gillam, and it's called City of Women. And all too often in historical fiction, it's World War II, and if it has women as the main component, it's usually resistance fighters, nurses, or Jewish women. And that's great, and I do read those all the time, but this one is amazing because it is from women, German women. It's from their point of view. They're in Berlin. It says, in 1943, the height of the Second World War, with the men away at the front, Berlin has become a city of women. On the surface, Sigrid Schroeder is the model German soldier's wife. She goes to work every day, does as much with her rations as she can, and dutifully cares for her meddling mother-in-law, all the while ignoring the horrific immoralities of the regime. But behind this facade is an entirely different Sigrid, a woman of passion who dreams of her former Jewish lover, now lost in the chaos of the war. I love that it's from such a unique point of view that you don't hear of very often, and the writing was beautiful. And I had never read anything by this man. I just picked it up because of the description, and I loved this book. It was really good. I read it a really long time ago. Another author that I think is really good at historical fiction is Daisy Goodwin. She's the author who Victoria on PBS. She wrote a book called Victoria, and that's what that show on PBS is based on, is that book. And she also writes for the show, I believe. This one's called The American Heiress. It is about Cora Cash, a beautiful, spirited, and the richest girl in the country. And basically she gets sold in marriage, basically, to an English lord or something, so he can get the cash and she can get the title. Well, her mom wants her to have the title. Again, as I have a history degree. So, and I read enough nonfiction to know when someone's done their research. And Daisy has written about different time periods. I think I've read most of her books, and she always just gets it right. There's a great story. It's keeps you going. There's love in it. There's, you know, a little romance, but it's part of the story, so I don't mind it. But she's a really good author, and The American Heiress was really good. This one will come as no surprise because I talked about him in my one of my previous videos. C.W. Gortner is one of my all-time favorite historical fiction authors. He typically chooses real women. It's biographical historical fiction. And weaves their story into this magical fiction novel that you're just like, what? And I also want to say, with historical fiction, I really can appreciate a really good author's note where they explain where they did take liberties and why, and where they, you know, they didn't, and this is true. I think that's important because we don't want everybody out there just thinking like everything's real in these. This one's about Mademoiselle Chanel, and I believe it starts off when she's quite young and goes through, oh gosh, it's been a really long time since I read this, guys. I think it goes through World War II. Again, he just has amazing writing. You feel like you're there. You feel like you know the character. And they never seem too far off of like what you've heard of those people. Okay, gotta keep moving. I don't want this to be too long. This person has only written one book. I heard she has started another one. We'll have to wait and see. It's Georgia Hunter, We Were the Lucky Ones. This is probably one of my all-time favorite historical fiction ever. It is about a Jewish family. I want to say they're in Poland. Yep. The extraordinary, propulsive story of a family of Polish Jews who are separated at the start of World War II, determined to survive and to unite. There's like 9 of them, and I don't want to give anything away if you haven't read it, but it's actually her family. It's like her family. So that was a nice thing to know. They all separate trying to survive, and some have kids, some is trying to go to school, but they're wealthier, so, and they're educated, and so when stuff starts to happen early on in the early 30s, they're like, maybe we should get out of here. So amazing historical fiction. I cannot wait to see what she writes next. This should not come as no surprise to historical fiction lovers. Isabella Allende is I mean, she's a New York Times bestselling author for a reason. Got this from my library book sale, and I put those stickers on the front. Put it right here. Anyways, this is called The Japanese Lover, and I read many of Isabel's books. She is passionate with the way she writes. So Alma is Polish and Jewish, I believe, and maybe she's not Jewish, but she does get sent to live with her aunt and uncle in San Francisco, where she meets their gardener's Japanese son, and they fall in love. And then the United States puts all the Japanese people into internment camps, and if you don't know that, you should really look into that, because it's a disgusting piece of history that isn't shared, because it's disgusting, but we should not forget it. So that was another thing that I really liked about this book, is that it shows you like a different part of history that maybe a lot of people don't know about. I like that. I like being intrigued enough about something new in history to where I can go and research it, like the book nerd that I am, and see if there's a nonfiction book to go along with it, or just Google basically and just see articles and stuff. So that was nice, because I did learn about the internment camps and went on to further reading. The Gods of Gotham by Lyndsay Faye. Holy crap, she's really good. I want to say this is part of a trilogy. I could be wrong. I think I read them all, or maybe it's a duo. I'm not sure. It's been a really long time since I read this. I'll just read the blurb. 1845, New York City forms its first police force. The Great Potato Famine hits Ireland. These two events will change New York City forever. Timothy Wilde tends bar, saving every dollar in hopes of winning the girl of his dreams. But when his dreams are destroyed by a fire that devastates downtown Manhattan, he is left with little choice but to accept a job in the newly minted New York City Police Department. Basically, he becomes like... This is not based on like any one particular person, but it is based on like the first detectives of New York City. He goes on to solve crimes. You've got, think Gangs of New York, because I'm pretty sure that's 5 points right there. The slums, the tenements. I think that's his beat that he works. The author has her characters be pretty funny, which I like. You find yourself kind of chuckling or laughing out loud. I've read quite a few of her books, and I do enjoy her writing style. What's good about this one is she talks like, there's the Irish people, and she writes like an Irish person would talk, and then like a New Yorker, and then this, and so you can hear all the accents in your head as you're reading it, which I think is really fun. And it's about the first like detectives, and I think he just goes on to solve all these crimes and the beginning of the Italian mafia, and it's just really good. I do think there's 3 in there. Check it out. One that I read probably 15 years ago, but it has still stuck with me, is Lalita Tademi. It's actually Cane River and then Red River, but I only own Red River. It is the story of a black family who are slaves, and then after slavery is ended, it's a saga, so it's going to follow family members through time. I do believe Cane River starts when they are slaves. Again, I read that 15 years ago. But she just speaks so beautifully, even of the hard stuff. Oh, gosh, I don't know. She's just amazing. So it says, weaving together history and the story of her own family, Lalita Tademi presents a dramatic tale of 2 families struggling to survive in an America deeply divided after the Civil War. An epic novel of violence, courage, and dreams broken and strengthened, Red River explores issues that resonate to this day as it illuminates the sometimes heartbreaking choices we all must make to claim the legacy that is ours. So like I said, this is number 2 in a duo. Cane River is first. They're both phenomenal, and in fact I kind of want to read them again. especially with everything that's been going on in the world around us and with race relations. I think I might do that. My last one to talk about, it's a little longer video. This is a pre-pub that I was able to get at the library I used to work at. It's Allison Pataki's The Queen's Fortune. It's a, excuse me, a novel of Desiree, Napoleon, and the Dynasty. Allison Pataki does biographical historical fiction, like, I think as good as C.W. Gortner. This one obviously is about Desiree, Napoleon, and the Dynasty, and I learned so much in this book. It's quite a big one. I read it in a few days because I just couldn't put it down, and then I spent so much time researching because it was so interesting. She's also the author of Sisi, who was the Empress Sisi, the Empress of Austria-Hungary, maybe. She's a fascinating character, and that book was what led me to grab this arc, and I'll read anything by Allison Pataki. So I hope you found some new authors to check out. Let me know if you've read any of these books or these authors, or give me your recommendations down below. Like, I'm always looking for a debut author or more fly under the radar historical fiction author. And also let me know down below why you love historical fiction. I'm guessing that's why you're here, that's why you're watching this video, and I always like to see and hear why people like it, because then it makes me feel we could be friends. So anyways, thanks for joining. Please like and subscribe and tell your other bookish friends about me. I'm a little channel trying to grow. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.